Greetings and welcome to another impressions video here at Words About Games, and today we're going to be looking at Rage 2. Rage 2 is the unexpected open-world FPS sequel to id Software's Rage. In Rage 2 you play as Ranger Walker, who becomes the last best hope of saving the humans of the wasteland from the Authority, a mutant army led by General Cross who wants to wipe out all of the humans and start a new world order. I think. The story isn't really Rage 2's strong point. The best way I can describe Rage 2 is to talk about a specific loop of gameplay you'll come across frequently while playing. Engaging with almost any of the world's many open-world activities will see you engage in some of the most satisfying first-person shooting this side of 2016's Doom reboot. You'll engage enemies with a variety of awesome weapons and superpowers, blasting across locations, switching guns and using powers like you're juggling cooldowns on an MMO. It feels fantastic, and you'll feel like a badass while having a ton of fun. Once everyone is dead and your main objective is complete, you'll spend the next 5 minutes wandering around the now deserted locations, looking for arc chests, data pads, or worst of all, storage containers, which are differentiated from containers you aren't looking for by their pink lids, in a world whose primary colour is also pink. Rage 2 has really divided me as someone who talks about how games make me feel and whether I've enjoyed them or not. In the thick of the game's combat, when I'm utilising the full range of my arsenal of creative weaponry and special abilities against the surprisingly competent AI enemies, Rage 2 is one of the best games of the year. If this was a straight up first person shooter, it would be competing for Game of the Year, at least so far. I can't overemphasise how great the game's shooting feels. Weapons feel punchy. Each time you pull the trigger, you can almost feel the impacts of its shots. And there's a glorious variety to your loadout, from standard pistols and shotguns to the revolver that shoots explosives into enemies that are detonated by the snap of your fingers. Incredibly satisfying. Or my personal favourite, Grav Dart Launcher, which lets you fill enemies with darts, then use alternate fire to fling said enemies at high velocity wherever you're aiming. This is augmented by abilities that can see you able to jump in the air and perform a ground pound, turning yourself into a grenade, or throw down a barrier. You also have access to Overdrive, a meter you fill that, once unleashed, it significantly amps up your damage output. All of the weapons and abilities are incredibly useful, and when you're lost in the flaws and rhythms of combat, you'll be switching between them all as the situation calls for it. But Rage 2 isn't a straightforward FPS, it's also an open world game, and most everything about its open world is a lot less successful. The world itself feels unfinished and largely unnecessary. While the environment itself can look quite pretty, with a cool variety of biomes, Rage 2 suffers big time from an almost lackadaisical mission design. The critical mission path is incredibly short, so short that I've actually reached the final mission, and I've indulged in a lot of side content along the way. The truncated length of the game could be forgiven if Rage 2 had strong side content, but it bizarrely treats its open world activities as afterthoughts. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of activities. Bandit dens, arcs that house new weapons and abilities, sentinels that act as mini-bosses, convoys and more. But these activities serve as a checklist, at best. Things to find and complete with no weight assigned to them. There are no missions to complete them. They simply exist because without them you wouldn't actually have anything to do in Rage 2, save for a campaign that can be beaten in probably around 3 hours. There are vast sections of the map that have no reason to exist. Heck, there are entire towns that I've found by accident. The game never sends you to them, and there are no missions associated with their existence. They're just there. I'd be willing to bet there are people who have beaten Rage 2 that have no idea there are 2 other settlements out there aside from the ones the game points you at. Don't worry if you've missed them, there's nothing in them apart from some vendors and a couple of bounties you can just as easily stumble on by exploring the world. The lack of missions makes the story incredibly forgettable, and I mean that literally. I can't recall a single detail of the plot. The game is stuffed full of forgettable characters with meaningless motivations. The only reason I remember the name of the antagonist is because of how on the nose it is. Rage 2 is also home to a needlessly convoluted and confusing set of progression systems. There are multiple currencies to juggle for upgrading weapons, ability, gear, and vehicles, with multiple upgrade menus for the same thing. It's all just a confusing mess, with far too many different avenues in place for you to make any meaningful decisions on how to upgrade your stuff, made all the worse by some immense lag that makes navigating menus an actually painful experience. The game is currently littered with bugs. Rage 2 will frequently lock up or crash, of course. Audio bugs abound as well. Sometimes dialogue will stop playing, Sometimes the audio will disappear entirely, replaced by a sharp buzzing sound that will deafen you if you're wearing headphones. Rage 2 is a game with an identity crisis. It's a tremendously satisfying first-person shooter trapped in an incredibly tedious open-world game. When you're in combat, it feels brilliant thanks to some excellent gunplay mechanics and a great suite of weapons and abilities. When you're out of combat, it's one of the dullest open-world experiences you can encounter, and how much you'll love the game will depend on how much of the latter you can ignore to get to the shooting. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, please leave us a comment, like, or subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We've got tons of awesome videos coming every week, including review impressions, indie game of the week, debate-driven top 5 lists, video essays, and our weekly podcast where we discuss games, gaming culture, and the games industry. We also stream 3 times a week at twitch.tv/wordsaboutgames. But most importantly, have a fantastic day.